This is the evening news from Moscow. You're listening to simultaneous interpretation from the Russian by John Glad. The program is called News 1. Good evening. Here are the news for Channel 1. There's no way back from the market. We have to support the reform. This is Mr. Gaidar. Today, 11 mines in Kazakhstan went back to work. In the meantime, Riga and Tallinn have no electricity or fuel, and Russia is threatened with an energy crisis as well. In southern Ossetia, they're demanding independence. The officers of the army are calling for a rebirth of Russia in a new political movement. New details on the failed coup attempt. Today is Lenin Day. That's not John Lennon, but Vladimir Lenin. Now, the old socialist system has been destroyed, but the new market system has yet to be created. What lies ahead for us? Here are the details from our statistical committee. Coal mining is down 11%, oil down by 11%, electrical energy by 1%. At first glance, that might not seem all that bad, but in Tallinn, there's no hot water or fuel or heating. In Riga, there's only enough diesel fuel for a few days. The energy crisis might reach Russia as well. Today, agreements for fuel are such that only 1/3 of the required amount are being received. Nevertheless, the system has survived the first test, and the winter has been kind in addition. But the cold might become worse and last for weeks, and that's a subject of fear. This is Mr. Bondarenko, who is the chief energy dispatcher. We have a critical situation with spare fuel or reserve fuel. There are regions where the situation is the most critical. The Far East, they have no coal. In the Transcaucasian region, in Belarus, Ukraine, we have a shortage of heating fuel, heating oil. We have improper policies on the part of the fuel-producing enterprises who are limiting their agreement deliveries, not understanding that by so doing they are reducing their own supplies of electricity. But we can understand the miners and the oil men. They're not getting enough equipment, and the equipment has become more expensive. It's a vicious circle. Only politicians with common sense can help out. But for the time being, all they're doing is rocking the boat, forgetting that they themselves are in the boat. Common sense can win out if people want to come to an agreement. The mines in Kazakhstan have gone back to work. The miners have not received salaries since November. In the Kuzbas, the situation is yet to be resolved, and negotiations are being continued. In the Rostov coal mining region, there are strikes going on. At the end of last year, this is the Kuzbas region, there were 2 reports put on the desk of the director of the region on production and on construction. The miners had fulfilled all their plans even ahead of time. They had produced 365,000 tons of coal. That permitted them to build almost 200 apartments, a kindergarten, to put a roof on a new school, to buy some food. This also helps the miners to get along today. But the work almost came to an end when diesel fuel ceased to be delivered. Here are the problems that we heard this morning at the brigadiers meeting. No spare parts, no cables, construction materials. No one knows what to do about diesel fuel. That means the electrical stations will stop working. It will become cold in the homes. So the miners are not prepared. for the strike, but this is a situation where the governmental officials are actually themselves provoking the strike by not supplying the miners. So here we have a peculiar situation. The miners want their salaries. These are cruel games at liberalizing prices at the expense of those people who are working. The growth of prices has gotten out of hand, but salaries have not changed. Minimal expenditures today are such that the minimal expenditure for children under 7 is 1,213 rubles. For men, 2,295. For women from 17 to 54 years old, the minimum expenditures are 2,333 rubles a month. And those are only minimal expenditures. Under these conditions, many people find themselves becoming members of the lumpen proletariat. They become totally impoverished. As in many capitalistic countries, how we are creating a charitable fund for those who need it. This is Kiev. The pensioners in Kiev should have gotten 200 coupons, but they were issued only 100. What can they do if the living minimum is 400 million rubles, and a flannel dressing gown costs 180, and a kilo of meat 100? Measures this. These are meat pies in Ukrainian. So practice and theory are separating here. But the goal is to clothe and feed our old people and children. 30 people in this particular institution are paralyzed children. The local authorities are helping to get clothing and footwear. They got 30 kilograms of potatoes and onions last month. This is from West Germany for the poor of Kiev. But the fund has other plans. Because of the inflation, we have to find new methods. We want to have a dentist's office, an eye doctor. We need specific help from the local authorities in the form of office space, if we're to help the old people and help to deliver and distribute this assistance. One of the creators of the Polish political reform, Mr. Dąbrowski, considers that there is no other choice for us. According to him, we will have a political crisis. The destruction of the transportation system is becoming very complicated and very problem. In the meantime, the republics are introducing not only their own money, but their own time schedules. But as you know, that the trains need train schedules. Here in the rail network of the former USSR, they operated under Moscow time. That was the demand of technology. But now they've moved the clock back an hour. Only in the Russian Federation, in Belarus, Ukraine, in the Chechen Republic, Tataria, they've ignored the new schedule time. So there's chaos in the rail transportation system, particularly at switching stations, and that is going to be inevitable in the future. And this will mean billions of rubles of losses. There will be a lot of suffering on the part of the passengers. We have the highest number of passengers moved around in the world. We have trillions, literally, of passengers being moved annually. Are there any losses? Those are the losses endured by the passengers who will have to stand for hours waiting for trains. So this is Mr. Shatayev, who is the director of the rail transportation system. So in the West, they make changes in the schedule in over 8 or 9 months. In our country, on the 8th of January, they made the decision, published it the 9th, and as of the 19th, we have to carry this out. This is impossible if we want to have a sensible, coordinated system. But what can the passengers count on? instability of schedules, at least up until the last Sunday in March, when we will move into summertime. At the very least, it will be that bad until that time. From Georgia, we learned that the negotiations between the military committee and the resistance have not produced any results. One of the leaders of the military council, Jaba Osiliani, gave Gamsachordia an ultimatum. Today, they were to have put down arms, otherwise force would be applied. The military council declared that there would be no repressions of Gamsachordia's supporters. Gamsachordia had intended to go from Sukhumi to Zugdidi, or he did go, after he attempted to fly from Sukhumi to Grozny. But the military council controls the airspace, so the plane didn't even make it to Sukhumi and had to turn back.